We love building pedestals. As a culture, we spend years, sometimes decades, placing our favorite artists, athletes, and creators on these towering heights. We marvel at their talent, copy their style, and buy into the myth of their genius. But lately, it feels like we are living in the golden age of the crumbling pedestal. The very empires that seemed completely untouchable are fracturing right before our eyes. It makes you wonder if the price of legacy is ultimately too high to pay, or if the foundations were just built on sand from the very beginning.
It is a fascinating shift. If you look at the history of entertainment, especially the era of the massive music moguls of the 90s and 2000s, their power was absolute. They were the ultimate gatekeepers. They did not just produce records, they shaped culture, controlled media narratives, and held the keys to who succeeded and who vanished. But what we are seeing now is that the fortress of secrecy they built around themselves is no longer impenetrable. The cultural climate has shifted from passive consumption to active scrutiny. The tools of accountability have caught up with the scale of their influence.
And it is not just happening in the music industry. Look at sports, or even the overnight empires of viral creators. The cycle is moving at warp speed now. A creator can gain 10 million followers in a month, build a brand worth millions, and then watch it evaporate over a single weekend because of a leaked video or a pattern of behavior that gets exposed. The velocity of both the rise and the fall is dizzying. Why do you think the modern audience has become so much less forgiving of the giants they once worshipped?
I think it comes down to a fundamental breach of contract. In the past, there was a distance between the celebrity and the fan. That distance created a mystique, a sort of buffer zone. If a sports star or a music mogul behaved badly, it was whispered about in industry circles, but it rarely made it to the front page, unless it was too big to ignore. Today, that buffer zone is gone. We expect intimacy. We expect authenticity. When we find out that the person we let into our living rooms, our headphones, and our daily routines was wearing a mask, the sense of betrayal is personal. It is no longer just about a bad record or a poor performance on the field. It is about the deception.
That word, authenticity, is so double-edged. We demand it, but we also create the economic incentives for people to fake it. If you are a viral creator, your entire business model is selling a curated version of your life as if it is raw and unedited. It is a performance of non-performance. When the curtain gets pulled back, the audience feels foolish for believing it. But is it fair for us to expect these massive public figures to be moral beacons? Or are we just setting them up to fail so we can enjoy the spectacle of the collapse?
There is definitely a dark, almost gladiatorial element to how we consume public downfalls. There is a term for it, Schadenfreude, but it feels deeper than that now. It is almost a form of collective therapy. When we see someone who seemed to have unlimited wealth, power, and immunity face consequences, it reassures us that the rules still apply to everyone. But we have to distinguish between different types of downfalls. There is a massive difference between a creator getting cancelled for a tone-deaf comment and a music mogul facing serious legal reckonings for decades of systemic exploitation. The danger is that the internet tends to treat both with the same level of outrage, which dilutes the gravity of actual harm.
That is a crucial distinction. When everything is treated as a level 10 crisis, we lose the ability to prioritize. The systemic issues get lost in the noise of the daily news cycle. If a legendary figure in the music industry is accused of abusing their power, that is not just a personal failing, it is an organizational one. It means agents, lawyers, publicists, and executives all looked the other way because the money was too good. The legacy was a shield. How do we begin to dismantle that kind of systemic protection?
It starts with independent, relentless journalism, the kind of reporting that does not rely on access. For a long time, access journalism dominated the entertainment industry. If you wanted the interview with the superstar, you had to play by the publicist's rules. You could not ask the hard questions because if you did, you were blacklisted. But the journalists who are breaking these major stories now are often working outside that access loop. They are spending months, sometimes years, corroborating sources, looking at court documents, and building cases that cannot be easily swept under the rug by a high-priced public relations firm.
Which brings us to the reality of the media landscape today. It is incredibly easy to get lost in the sea of clickbait and superficial takes. We are constantly bombarded with headlines designed to make us angry for 5 minutes before we scroll to the next thing. Finding a source of information that actually takes the time to investigate, to verify, and to present the facts without bias feels rarer than ever.
It really is. And that is why having a reliable anchor in the storm of daily news is so essential. If you want to understand the forces shaping our world, from the boardrooms of entertainment empires to the halls of political power, you need journalism that is thorough, independent, and uncompromising. That is exactly what you get with our sponsor, the New Sentinel.
The News Sentinel is not about chasing the loudest outrage of the hour. They are about depth. They provide the kind of investigative reporting and nuanced analysis that helps you understand the systemic issues we were just talking about. Whether it is a deep dive into the shifting power dynamics of the music industry or a comprehensive look at how emerging technologies are changing the sports world, they give you the context that social media feeds leave out.
What I appreciate most about their work is the commitment to accuracy. In an era where being first is often prioritized over being right, the New Sentinel takes the time to get it right. They offer daily briefings, deep dive features, and expert commentary that respect your intelligence. It is the perfect antidote to information fatigue.
If you want to support independent journalism and stay truly informed, you can subscribe to the New Sentinel today. Our listeners get an exclusive offer of 50% off their annual digital subscription. Just go to thenewsentinel.com/podcast to claim this offer. That is thenewsentinel.com/podcast to start reading truth, not noise.
It is a small price to pay for clarity in a world that is increasingly complicated. Because when the dust settles on these public scandals, the only thing that remains standing is the truth, and we need people who are willing to dig for it.
Coming back to that idea of legacy, it makes me think about how we define success now. Historically, a legacy was measured by longevity, by how long your name stayed on the building or how many hits you accumulated. But now, it feels like legacy is much more fragile. You can build a brand over 40 years and lose it in 40 seconds. Does this change how the next generation of creators and leaders will approach their careers? Will they be more cautious? Or will they just become better at hiding the cracks?
I hope it leads to a shift towards sustainability over scale. For a long time, the goal was infinite growth, infinite power, infinite wealth. But when you build something that large, the pressure to maintain the illusion of perfection becomes immense. You start cutting corners, silencing critics, and protecting the brand at all costs. If the next generation realizes that an empire built on fear or exploitation is guaranteed to collapse, perhaps they will focus on building smaller, more transparent, and more ethical enterprises. It might mean fewer billionaires, but it would certainly mean a healthier culture.
That sounds like a hopeful outlook, but there is also a countertrend. We see some public figures who seem to lean into the chaos. They do not try to hide the cracks, they make the cracks their brand. They build an audience that values defiance over accountability. In a way, they become immune to the traditional downfall because their followers expect them to be controversial. It is a strange paradox where being flawed is the ultimate selling point.
It is the ultimate shield against cancellation. If your brand is built on being the outsider, the rebel, or the provocateur, then any attempt to hold you accountable is easily reframed as an attack by the establishment. It is a highly effective strategy in a polarized world, but even that strategy has a shelf life. Eventually, the novelty wears off, or the legal system steps in where public opinion fails. The law does not care about your brand identity or how many loyal followers you have. When the institutional guardrails finally engage, the defiance usually turns into quiet compliance.
It is a sobering reminder that no matter how loud the digital noise gets, the physical world and its rules still exist. The contracts, the laws, the human cost of these actions, they all eventually demand payment. We look at these figures as characters in a drama, but the real-world consequences for the people affected by their actions are very real.
Exactly. And that is the note we should probably leave our listeners with. The next time you see a massive headline about a fallen giant, take a step back from the spectacle. Ask yourself what the real story is, who was affected, and what systemic structures allowed it to happen in the first place. The truth is rarely found in the comments section. It is usually buried in the details that take time to uncover.
A very wise perspective to end on. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We hope it gave you something to think about the next time you scroll through your feed. Don't forget to check out our sponsor at thenewsentinel.com/podcast for 50% off your annual subscription. Stay curious, look beyond the headlines, and we will see you next time.